Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into Hercule Poirot and Death in the Marble Library, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The Silence of the Marble Library. The relentless patter of rain on the marble roof of Windermere Manor echoed through the cavernous hallways, drenching the house in a mood both melancholic and ominous. Lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the stately facade of the manor cast in shadows. Inside, the silence hung like a heavy cloak, broken only by the creaking of the ancient timbers and the distant howl of the wind. It was in this atmosphere of foreboding that Lady Eleanor Justice stumbled upon the haunting scene that would disturb the tranquility of the village of Windermere for years to come. As she entered the marble library, a room steeped in rich tomes and lined with exquisite marble columns, she found her husband, Lord Justice, slumped over his ebony desk, his once proud form now reduced to a mere silhouette against the shimmering lamp's glow. Panic gripped her heart as she knelt beside him, her hands trembling in shock. He appeared lifeless, a cascade of paperwork strewn about him, details of his latest legal case forgotten in death's embrace. "James!" she cried, her voice piercing the heavy silence. But there was no answer, only the oppressive stillness that wrapped itself around the cold room like a shroud. The door of the library was locked from within, the brass handle cool to the touch, offering no hint at the calamity that had unfolded behind its closed door. The dreadful truth was already settling in her gut like an unwelcome weight. Lord Justice was gone. Outside, the storm intensified, as if mirroring the chaos that now enveloped the manor. It was then, amidst her panic, that Lady Eleanor recalled the visiting detective, Hercule Poirot, a man renowned for his ratiocination and an uncanny ability to unveil the truth hidden beneath layers of pretense. She had dismissed his offer to call at the manor just days before, her husband insisting on privacy due to his reclusive nature. With her heart pounding like the thunder in the sky, she raced to summon Poirot. Within the hour, the detective entered the library, his crisp attire a striking contrast to the somber decor around him. A small man with an imposing presence, Poirot's keen eyes surveyed the scene with an intensity that made even Lady Eleanor flinch. He approached Lord Justice's motionless figure with a sense of reverence, noting the slight dribbling of ink from a quill, a significant detail that would hold the key to unraveling this grim tapestry of murder. "Pour le ciel! Such profound silence in this hallowed room," Poirot murmured, his thick French accent punctuating his disbelief. He gently lifted Lord Justice's wrist, feeling for a pulse, though deep down he knew what the result would be. "Alas, it appears that our friend Mr. Justice has departed this mortal coil." He drew back and turned to Lady Eleanor, who stood wringing her hands, her pale face streaked with distress. "Hercule Poirot, I implore you, you must find out who did this." Lady Eleanor's voice quivered, and tears glimmered in her eyes like raindrops against the window pane. He was such a noble man, dedicated to the law." "Indeed, a noble man," Poirot replied thoughtfully, "but it seems that the man who wielded the law also attracted enemies. This suggests a motive." He began a methodical inspection of the room, his mind whirling with possibilities as he navigated the space with poise. The room was filled with memorabilia, framed accolades, and a striking portrait of Lord Justice from his days in Parliament, a bastion of integrity. Yet Poirot noticed a photograph partially concealed beneath a stack of documents, its contents intriguing him. He brushed aside the papers and discovered an image of his lordship in a jovial gathering, laughing companionably with a face that piqued his interest. The renowned barrister Oliver Grant, a man said to have been embroiled in scandal not too long before. What mischief would such a friendship inspire, Poirot pondered, and how did it intertwine with Lord Justice's fate? Poirot then turned to the desk. The ink-stained quill seemed to speak volumes. "Lady Eleanor, tell me of the circumstances leading to this tragedy. Did your husband express distress, or perhaps receive any threats prior to this occurrence?" Eleanor's brows knitted together, her blue eyes clouded with memories. "Only last week, he mentioned a heated discussion with Lord Pemberley concerning a case involving industrial interests. They were at odds over certain occupations, you see. Lord Pemberley has much to gain from the outcome." As she spoke, her voice wavered, revealing a glimpse of the deep-rooted tension within the household, the looming shadow of ambition and greed. Poirot's sharp mind whirred with the implications of her words. So we have two potential individuals with the motive. Oliver Grant, who perhaps bore a grudge, and Lord Pemberley, impulsive and desperate. But how does the locked door fit into our enigma? He paced the room, the brown leather soles of his shoes whispering against the polished floor. It was a puzzle to unfold, its pieces scattered amidst whispers of guilt and treachery. He continued examining the desk, noting the undisturbed layer of dust on a nearby shelf, tempting evidence that suggested no one had entered this place since Lord Justice's demise. But it was the letter, half-folded at the edge of his desk, that caught Poirot's attention. He picked it up delicately, scanning the neatly penned words. It was a note requesting a meeting with the strict stipulation that only one person could be present. "The truth shall be revealed." "Ah, there is a secret at play, my dear Eleanor," Poirot concluded, excitement igniting in his azure eyes. "But now we must uncover what this truth entwines and who sought to obscure it." But before he could unfold the implications further, the sound of hurried footsteps approached from outside. Lady Eleanor's expression sharpened. Who could that be? As the door swung open, a well-dressed man stood drenched from the rain, visibly shaken. "I'm Oliver Grant," he stammered. "I need to speak with Lord Justice immediately." Poirot's eyes met Lady Eleanor's, the air thick with tension. Here was the man whose friendship was as much a liability as a boon, a fabled advocate entangled in webs woven from ambition and betrayal. "Ah, Mr. Grant," Poirot said, his voice dripping with measured calm. "It would appear you have arrived just in time, for you have much to explain." As the storm raged on outside, the thread connecting their fates twisted tighter, and Poirot could already sense the whispers of deception in the still air of the marble library. And thus, the true inquiry into the silence of Windermere Manor began, a journey that would peel back the layers of loyalty, ambition, and murder, one clue at a time. Chapter 2. The missing piece of the puzzle. The rain, now a torrential downpour, lashed against the windows of Windermere Manor with a ferocity that mirrored the brewing storm of tension within its walls. As Hercule Poirot stood in the marble library, the weight of the recent tragedy was palpable, the very air alive with whispers. The scent of damp wood mixed with the perfume of old books, and the slightest hint of something metallic lingered, evoking a sense of foreboding that clung to him like a second skin. "Mr. Grant," Poirot said, his voice a deliberate tranquility against the backdrop of chaos, "you are indeed pressing your arrival at a most unfortunate time." He motioned towards the still form of Lord Justice, a cold reminder of mortality that enveloped the room in silence. Oliver Grant, the renowned barrister, looked as though he had just stepped out of a tempest. His hair was slicked back, chest heaving from the exertion of having raced through the storm, but it was his wide eyes that spoke of deeper anxieties. "I've heard. I can't believe it. James," his voice faltered, emotion choking back the words. Lady Eleanor, ever the embodiment of elegance even in the face of tragedy, turned to Grant, her expression a blend of confusion and anger. "Why did you not come sooner?" she demanded, her voice shaking, though her resolve remained firm. "You were supposed to meet him." Grant's confusion was apparent. "I was delayed, but I received a letter earlier this evening." "A letter?" Poirot flicked his attention towards him, urgency sparking in those emerald eyes. "A letter, Mr. Grant, you say? This is relevant, no?" "Of course," Grant replied, gripping the desk as though it were his only lifeline. "It was from Lord Justice, written hastily, instructing me to meet him here tonight. He mentioned something about a family rift." His words trailed off, a sudden realization dawning as he met Poirot's penetrating gaze. "Here we have it, mes amis," Poirot announced, the corners of his mouth twitching up in a knowing smile. "The plot thickens, a family rift indeed, and it begs the question of who it concerns. You see, Mr. Grant, your presence indicates a deeper connection. Might I inquire into the substance of this correspondence?" Grant gathered himself, producing a crumpled piece of paper from his breast pocket. "I shouldn't have rushed here without proper context, but the letter spoke of a disagreement with my brother Charles. He was terribly upset with James. I didn't know it had escalated to this." As the rain lashed against the windows, Poirot studied the paper, the handwriting elegant but hurried, the ink slightly smudged as if it had been hastily penned during a moment of distress. Intriguing," he murmured, quickly analyzing the nuances of the writing. "Would you kindly enlighten me what may have caused such discord among you and your brother?" "The business ventures," Grant replied, unease creeping into his voice. "Charles believed James was exploiting opportunities at the expense of their family estate. He felt betrayed and—" "Betrayal," Poirot interjected, his mind working through the possibilities. "A very potent motive. And yet you speak of a rift, Mr. Grant, while standing on the threshold of grief for a lost friend. Tell me, do you harbor resentment toward Lord Justice, or merely sorrow?" Grant hesitated, eyes narrowing as he wrestled with his emotions. "I admired him, Poirot, but I also felt overshadowed by his successes. Yet I would never—" "Never what? Never wish him harm?" Poirot's rhetorical question hung in the air, as heavy as the falling rain, challenging every assurance Grant sought to communicate. Meanwhile, Lady Eleanor stepped forward, the color draining from her face. "Is there something you're not telling us, Oliver?" Her voice held an edge of steel. "Have you conspired with Charles against James?" "No," Grant erupted, his voice sharp and thick with incredulity. "I had no idea that Charles was so steadfastly opposed to James. Until I received the letter, I knew nothing." Fragile conviction bled into his words, but Poirot remained vigilant, the dissonance in the room thickening. The detective turned away slightly, observing how every piece of furniture, Every detail in the marble library seemed laden with secrets. The storm outside rumbled, a distant echo of the chaos inside, as if nature anticipated the truth that loomed just out of reach. "And what of this Charles?" he asked, searching for hidden motives like a sculptor chiseling away at stone to reveal the statue within. "Our attention now shifts to him, yes?" "Charles?" Lady Eleanor frowned, troubled. "I cannot believe he would go so far. Would he truly harm James over such trivial matters?" Her voice broke, reflecting a woman torn between disbelief and grief. "But you must understand, he so vehemently opposed the changes James sought for the estate." Poirot's brow furrowed, piecing together their fears and uncertainties. "Consider this: a locked door, a dead gentleman, and a family branch on the verge of snapping under internal pressure. This is not simply an accident. It is a tableau painted in shades of envy and desperation." At that moment, the library door swung open again, and a woman entered, her expression grave and her attire slightly disheveled. "I was looking for you, Oliver," she said, addressing him as if Poirot were an afterthought. "I have information about James's meeting. It's crucial." "Lydia?" Grant blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Her eyes darted to Poirot, assessing him with an intensity that suggested she understood more than she let on. James had worried about someone else, someone beyond Charles. He mentioned a conflict with a business associate, a man named Pemberley. He said it had to be resolved quietly. Poirot snapped his fingers. "Ah, Lord Pemberley, the industrialist. It seems his interests collide ominously with Lord Justice's principles. A trifecta of motives unfolds before us: envy, family rift, and corporate intrigue." The tension surged as silence enveloped the room. Lady Eleanor, her hands pressed against her temples, groaned softly. "How could it have come to this? I trusted everyone. How many more secrets are layered within this tragedy?" Poirot stepped toward the door with purpose. "Every answer leads us closer to the truth, my friends. There is no room for misdirection in the unraveling of this tapestry." He paused, eyes scanning each individual in the room. "For if we are to find justice for Lord Justice, we must uncover every hidden piece of this puzzle, every note, every secret shared, before the storm passes and obscures our vision forever." In that moment, the house creaked ominously, and the lights flickered as if in agreement with the impending storm of revelations that lurked just beyond the horizon, leaving Poirot and his companions teetering on the cusp of an unsettling truth, each moment intensified by the rain that pounded insistently outside. The mystery deepened, and the detective's heart raced with anticipation as he stepped into the deluge of secrets, determined to uncover the missing pieces before it was too late. Chapter 3: A Game of Alibis. The wind howled through Windermere Manor like a restless spirit, rattling the window panes and enhancing the ambiance of suspense that cloaked the room. Hercule Poirot, his heart pounding with the urgency of uncovering the truth, stood surrounded by the hastily assembled guests. Every face wore the strain of recent tragedy, and yet there was an undertone of tension, a current of secrets flowing just beneath polite conversation. As Lady Eleanor glanced towards the clock, Poirot caught the flicker of fear in her eyes. It was a fear that echoed his own, the fear that the life stolen from Lord Justice might remain unsolved if the truth did not emerge from the shadows soon enough. "Mes amis," Poirot addressed those in the room, his voice steady yet commanding, "we find ourselves at a most critical juncture. Each of you claims to have been elsewhere during the moment Lord Justice met his unfortunate demise. I implore you, what can you tell me about your whereabouts?" Oliver Grant stepped forward, still pale from the storm's wrath, both within and outside. "I was in the library with James up until I left to fetch Lady Eleanor," he stated, his voice slightly wavering. "But I had stepped out only moments before the tragedy transpired," Poirot finished for him, feeling the fragments of their alibis begin to align like pieces of a broken clock. "And you, Lady Eleanor, your movements?" "I received word from him via Mr. Grant that he required my presence," she replied, but Poirot noted the tremor in her voice. "I was just in the corridor outside, standing near the door. I meant to ensure I would be there, but the noise of the storm distracted me." Poirot nodded, his mind whirring as he observed them both. "And yet none witnessed the moment of the deed," he murmured, the puzzle deepening with every revelation. "What about the others? Lady Lydia, you seem distressed. Where were you during this same period?" "I was upstairs," Lydia snapped defensively. "I had gone to gather my things after receiving the letter. James was upset, and I thought perhaps I could offer comfort." "Ah, but comfort would not come easy to a gathering storm," Poirot interjected, his gaze narrowing. "And then we have Mr. Charles Grant, who was notably absent, yet evident in Lord Justice's affairs. Where do you place yourself in this tapestry of alibis?" Charles, who had remained silent thus far, shifted uncomfortably. His dark hair was tousled, an added sign of disarray amid the tempest. "I was out walking, clearing my mind," he replied, a cloud of irritation rising around him. "I didn't want to hear it again. James and his schemes. And now it's too late." "Too late indeed," Poirot murmured. "And yet, your mention of schemes presents a marker of discord between you and your late brother." The tension in the air thickened as Charles met his gaze defiantly. "Jealousy," Charles exclaimed bitterly. "It's easy to place blame." "Poirot, but I had no reason to harm him. If anything, it was the burden of his choices that weighed too heavily upon me." An unexpected voice rang out, a steady, melancholic tone belonging to Lady Eleanor. "We must consider something deeper still. Did James not mention a business associate to you, Lydia? Perhaps a conflict that lies beyond our family's disputes?" Lydia's expression transformed, concern clouding her features as she cast her gaze down. "He did discuss Pemberley, but I imagined it was merely the pressures of business. Everyone in town knows he was ruthless." "Ruthless indeed," Poirot mused, seizing the opportunity to tighten the net of suspicion. "And yet both Charles and Mr. Grant have remarked on their grievances regarding James. Someone wished him harm. That much is certain." He straightened, his sharp detective's mind racing through the most recent threads of conversation. "While we ponder the veracity of our alibis, it surfaces that we have yet to address this." He gestured to a nearby table where a glass was tipped over, the remnants of sherry pooling on the fine wood. "Does anyone recall who last occupied this space?" "I was seated nearby before I went to find James," Lady Eleanor answered promptly, though the nervous quiver in her voice betrayed her composure. "But the table, it's always cluttered. The maid's work is never truly done." "But what you suggest, madame, is that there was indeed something more than simple clutter here," Poirot stated, a glint of discovery sparking in his eyes. "What if this glass once contained something other than a simple drink? Might it be connected to our inquiry?" "But who would even think of such things?" Grant countered, his brow creased with confusion. Poirot's mind whirred, Therein lies the riddle. Each of you holds a piece, but what is missing is coherence. The paths of your stories must intertwine, one revealing motive as others provide alibi. Could it not be true that someone here has hidden intentions? A silence descended as every participant glanced briefly between one another. Each wall built around their alibis felt momentarily fragile. Poirot stepped closer, the air thick with anticipation, his own pulse quickening as truth pierced through the storm looming outside. Lydia, you spoke earlier. Had James expressed concern about someone? A shadow beyond his family? Yes, but I didn't... She faltered, her gaze dropping. I pushed him towards Pemberley. The man had business sense. I thought it could salvage the estate. Pushing a friend into peril, or merely securing alliance? Poirot mused, stepping back. Might your own feelings have coloured his choices, Lady Lydia? Were you too fond of him to allow a loss? Lydia's face paled further, emotions swirling, as if the storm surrounding them was capturing the very tempest within her heart. I was trying to help him, she insisted, the rigidity in her voice wavering, but Poirot's thoughts churned as a new understanding solidified within. The glass, its position and contents might yield a clue. He turned back to it, reaching for the piece of tumbling history that could reveal the pinhole through which truth and deception often slid. But then, before he could grasp it, a loud crash echoed outside the manor, piercing through their rising tension, shattering the moment as a shadow passed across the rain-soaked window. Poirot glanced sharply toward the door just as it swung open violently, revealing mystery was far from settled. "Poirot!" shouted a voice from the rain. "We have a problem. Something's been found." The detective stood at the precipice of the truth, fear twisting through the air as he braced for what lay beyond the doors of Windermere Manor. The game of alibis was afoot, and all too soon, every shadow within its walls would be brought to light. Chapter 4. The Will That Was Never Signed. Rain hammered down upon Windermere Manor, the relentless drumming merging with the distant rumble of thunder as if the heavens themselves mourned the tragic loss. Inside, the tension was palpable, and Poirot found himself in an imperceptible standoff with the assembled family. He sensed an impending revelation. The air crackled with the unspoken secrets that loomed heavy between the occupants. The heavy wooden door creaked open once more, and in walked a harried servant, drenched from the rain and gasping for breath, clutching a bundle of yellowed papers. "Sir, I found this in the library," he stammered, eyes darting nervously among the solemn attendees. All attention shifted to him as he carefully laid the documents on the table in front of Poirot. With a deliberate calmness, Poirot approached the papers. His sharp gaze flickered over the top sheet, the handwriting elegant but hurried, the ink still dark and bold despite its age. "What have we here?" he mused, scanning the document, noting the date inscribed upon it. The last will and testament of Lord Justice, dated merely days prior to his demise. The room held its breath, each individual casting furtive glances among one another. Lady Eleanor, the matriarch of the family, leaned forward, her expression a mixture of shock and dread. I was unaware that James had drawn up a new will," she murmured, the gravity of her words hanging like a layer of storm clouds over the assembled group. "His previous will favored the estate being safeguarded by the family. If this document changes that, then his wishes may dramatically alter," Poirot interjected, his eyes narrowing as he turned the page. "But we must inquire further. It is not merely enough to possess a will, Authenticity must be established. Tell me, mon ami, he addressed the trembling servant. Are there more pages? Yes, sir, the man nodded, retrieving additional pages from the depths of the soggy parchment. But there's something odd about it. There's no signature, just a great deal of text, and he hesitated, blinking nervously at the rumpled papers as if they could impart secrets of their own. Ah, a will that stands without proper authentication, Poirot exclaimed, his voice rising with intensity. A signatory's absence raises a multitude of questions, and so our inquiry must delve not merely into the phrasing of his desires, but into the motives that led us here. This document is fraught with possibility. He spread the will across the table, examining the formality of its construction and the language used, the careful choice of words suggesting Lord Justice's intent to protect his remaining family members. But from whom, exactly? As multiple voices flooded the room, erupting into a cloak of uncertainty, Poirot held up a hand for silence. "One moment," he bellowed, contending with their fears. He strode slowly, deliberately, analyzing the faces surrounding him. "Each of you, what do you know about this will? What weight does it carry for you?" Charles Grant bristled at the intrusiveness of Poirot's gaze. "What business is this of ours? It might well be an old draft, hastily abandoned," he spat, though a storm of emotions danced in his eyes. "Perhaps," Poirot replied with measured calmness, "but it resonates with a time when you and your brother were at odds over the estate's future. Jealousy, conflict, and greed. Shall we explore each of your intrinsic motivations?" Lydia broke down under pressure. Her defiance was crumbling. James was adamant about revoking the various clauses that benefited the family. He said he'd had enough. He wanted to move forward without the burdens of the past. Her voice cracked, reflecting the tumult whirling through her spirit. The estate he wanted to safeguard by casting aside those he held against him. "And yet you worked closely with him, Lady Lydia," Poirot asserted, his voice unyielding. "How could you, supposed friend, encourage such drastic decisions? Did your feelings cloud your judgment?" "Clouded, yes," she began, but faltered, unable to articulate her emotions fully while under the acute scrutiny of the detective. James was a genuinely good man. He just struggled fiercely against the expectations of a family burdened by tradition. "Tradition, yes," Poirot interjected, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And therein lies the rub. Perhaps some of you hoped this new will would pave the way for a fresh start, while others feared the implications, the absence of a signature. Tell me, Lady Eleanor, how would James's interests directly impact the estate and its management?" Her lips pressed tightly together, her gaze was resolute, but betraying an undercurrent of agitation. James believed, perhaps naive, that our family procedures must be dismantled. We were never truly united in protecting this house, certainly not in spirit, she confessed, the weight of her accusations casting an uncomfortable pall. Yet it was the storm pounding against the windows, beating a rhythm like a drum of unease that shaped their souls. "Perhaps," Poirot said, his mind racing to connect the dots, "there are deeper implications. The absence of a signature could signify treachery among relatives. Jealousy, greed. Were you at all aware of your late brother's intentions?" He glanced pointedly around, to each individual, watching their reactions. "A document such as this could unravel your very ties." But just as the suggestion settled uneasily within the room, a shadow fell heavy over the paper, as a figure appeared in the doorway. It was a clerk from the local office, a look of urgency etched upon his face. "Excuse me, but A word for Mr. Poirot. It's about the will. It seems there's been an error in our records." Time slowed as the revelation hung in the air, the storm outside thundering in discord with their mounting dread. The detective's heart quickened, and a rush of adrenaline surged through his veins. "An error?" he repeated, betraying a shudder of anticipation. As the clerk stepped further into the room, breathless and soaked from the pouring rain, he clutched a small bundle of papers, evidence that promised to slice through the web of secrets woven tightly around Windermere Manor. "Here it is, sir, the missing pages, the ones meant to clarify his intentions," he gasped. "You must see. This changes everything." Poirot leaned forward, eyes ablaze with the lust for truth, as the room held its breath in collective anticipation. The storm raged outside, but inside, the tempest of souls intertwined more tightly than ever, each waiting for the unraveling thread that could lead to salvation or doom. The final puzzle piece lay in their midst, about to be unveiled. Chapter 5. Shadows of the Past. A violent clap of thunder crackled overhead, startling the occupants of Windermere Manor into silence. All eyes were fixed upon Poirot as he pored over the newly arrived pages of Lord Justice's hastily penned will. The air thickened with tension, the rhythmic patter of rain creating an eerie accompaniment to their deliberations. Amid the unrelenting storm, a sense of imminent discovery hung palpably in the air, as if the walls themselves whispered of dark secrets waiting to resurface. Poirot's brows knitted together as he scrutinized the intricate loops and swoops of the handwriting on the damp paper. "Mon ami," he began, addressing the clerk, his voice slicing through the stillness, "do you have knowledge of Lord Justice's brother, the estranged sibling who disappeared under peculiar circumstances?" The clerk shifted nervously, fumbling his muddy hat in his hands. "It was said, sir, that he had left their family home and cut ties with the estate years ago. Some claimed he had grown resentful of the legacy his brother clung to. Others said he vanished after a quarrel." "A quarrel?" Poirot's interest sharpened the way a blade glints under flickering light. "Specifics, my good man. What is known of this quarrel?" The clerk hesitated, glancing at the family assembled before him. "I've heard whispers that Lord Justice accused his brother of treachery, something regarding their father's estate, and debts he could not repay." "Which brother are we discussing here?" inquired Lady Eleanor, her voice taut with a mixture of apprehension and authority. "There are whispers of many sins among us." "James and his elder brother, Harold," the clerk replied, apprehensively. It was said Harold wished to sell his inheritance, but James had found it repugnant, believing it their father's dying wish to keep the estate intact. Poirot's eyes sparkled with the light of understanding. A schism in the family, a wound festered over time, but perhaps there is more. An unresolved legacy capable of inflaming emotions deeper than mere discord. He tapped thoughtfully on the titles of the documents, the finality of ink clashing against the transience of life. As the storm raged outside, Lydia leaned forward, her voice strained, yet devoid of resistance. "He must still be alive somewhere, working against us. Harold was always cunning. He has a way of resurfacing when least expected." Charles Grant, previously quiet, scoffed dismissively. Or perhaps he simply took himself off to avoid the burden of family. Rancor breeds nothing more. His lips curled in disdain. Poirot noted the edge in his tone. Was it an affront to the family's reputation he intended, or an attempt to quash attention away from himself? A man might take to hiding under the weight of family expectations, Poirot deduced, his gaze pinned to Charles, who shifted uncomfortably. Indeed, the shadows of the past may hold him hostage, yet missing will pages and unsubstantiated families beget suspicion and scarce alibis. What remains unknown is not solely Harold's whereabouts, but his motives, which spin a tapestry of fear and treachery. Lady Eleanor rose abruptly, pacing like a caged animal. Enough of these assumptions. We must focus on the here and now, the will. If Harold is alive, what does he seek from this estate? What dark intentions might he aspire to, especially without a signature? Poirot's heart raced as he seized the moment. Ah, but does not the absence of a signature on the will strike you as odd? Perhaps not merely hasty omissions, but rather deft eliminations, a strategy woven from cunning manipulation, perhaps orchestrated by Harold's lingering presence. In the crackling silence, Poirot felt the weight of every gaze upon him as tension thickened. A sudden recollection fluttered within him as he gestured towards the pages spread before them. "Tell me, dear family, how well do you know your heirlooms? Were they all accounted for?" One might inquire. Did you know of Lord Justice's handwritten drafts? Were any of this estate's arrangements outlined in letters, secreted private communiques? There was a moment of hesitation before Lady Eleanor finally replied. He often cursed his brother's name in private letters, but private indeed, Poirot interrupted gently. And yet, were they unusually revealing? Provide, if you will, for as much as the estate has its will, it may also harbor previous arrangements, unbound by memory. It is time to retrieve those treasures of history. Lead me to the past, to that which was thought lost, a document echoing Lord Justice's voice and illuminating the path to today. The family went silent, unsure of who would breach the next step toward uncertainty. An air of dread electrified the room. With every droplet of rain hammering against the window, the storm quelled the whispers burdening their minds. Poirot, driven by an urgent pursuit of truth, turned back to the clerk. Is there but one more crucial shadow in this estate's narrative that we must unmask? A document hiding within the corners, perhaps another side to their duet? Suddenly, a surge of frustration pursued Charles Grant's expression as he called out harshly, "You may sift through letters, Poirot, but you'll find nothing but the legacy of an estate plagued by greed and jealousy." "Are you certain?" Poirot replied, an eyebrow raised. "Before we conclude, I implore you to recount each memory tied to this estate. Let us escape the dark corners haunted by phantoms of your past." At that precise moment, Lydia's voice trembled, fragmenting the tension that held them taut. "James confided in me once, near the library. It was a moment of weakness. He thought Harold might come to claim more than his rightful legacy. He feared for his life. He believed he had a reason to fear for me too." "A claim on yours," Poirot interrupted, a revelation sparking in the depths of his mind. "Each person here has something to lose, a reason to want their ties severed." And then it happened. A sudden sharp sound emanated from the study. A distinct shattering of glass rang hollow across the hushed crowd, followed swiftly by a desperate scream. As Poirot surged toward the doorway, telling himself it was no mere accident, a flurry of emotions brewed within his heart. What dark shadows concealed the truth? With each muffled footfall reverberating against the wooden floor, he sensed a revelation looming on the horizon, a truth tangled beyond mere familial betrayal. The darkness of family secrets was not yet done teaching its lessons. The shadows were only beginning to rise. Chapter 6. The tension mounts. An echoing crash shattered the tension that had enveloped Windermere Manor. Poirot's heart raced as he surged through the dimly lit corridor toward the source of the sound. The wailing scream of Lydia resonated still through the air as he pushed past the open door of the study, his keen instincts urging him to assess the scene with the urgency of a condor taking flight. The storm raged outside, each bolt of lightning casting grotesque shadows that danced along the walls, amplifying the swirling sense of dread. Inside the study, shards of glass littered the polished wooden floor, glinting like tears strewn upon immaculate silk. In the center of the room, Lydia knelt, her hands trembling as they hovered above a broken flacon of ink. Its contents splashed across the recently uncovered pages of the will, whose revisions now appeared to swim in dark, wet blotches. Poirot stepped closer, the situation unfurling rapidly within his mind. "Mademoiselle," he addressed her gently, "tell me precisely what has occurred." She glanced up, her face pale and streaked with perspiration, breathing heavily as panic flitted behind her eyes. I was reaching for the documents. My fingers slipped. I thought I might uncover something more important. And then the ink." Her voice trailed off, doubt consuming her as her gaze flickered nervously through the gathering shadows of concerned relatives. "Courage, dear lady," Poirot reassured her, crouching to examine the ill-fated sheets. "This ink may provide me with insight. A momentary slip can reveal much." His deft fingers caressed the pages, tracing the ornate handwriting, each loop revealing a distinct character. "I must summon everyone," Charles Grant interjected abruptly, his voice hard with irritation, betraying an unwillingness to remain idle amid the recollection of a shattered trust. "This is no time for idle musings, Poirot. If Harold is indeed aware of the will's existence, we may find him attempting to flee with whatever scraps he intends to claim." "Yes, yes," Poirot replied, without surrendering his focus. "But first, may I inquire about the whereabouts of our dear Mr. Grant? In the instant of this disturbance, no one has accounted for him." A pronounced silence fell, as if the storm outside had absorbed all sound. "Charles?" Lady Eleanor echoed, her brows knitting together as she surveyed the room. "I had thought he remained with us." The concern palpable in her voice stirred unease, and Poirot felt it. "That is quite peculiar, non?" he remarked, his wheels of deduction spinning relentlessly. "One must conclude that Mr. Grant has chosen this moment to remove himself from the company." "No, how could he? Surely he wouldn't abandon his beloved estate during such calamity," Lydia protested, rising, breath still unsettled, her eyes darting about as if to summon an unseen presence from the shadows. "It is precisely within the chaos that clarity often lies, mademoiselle," Poirot replied, the sharpness of his gaze ignited with the thrill of the hunt. He turned on his heel, glancing back at the group, each face coated in worry. "Come, let us locate our rival." Thus he began his search, punctuated by the wrathful winds that rattled the sills. He led the way, navigating the draped hallways where portraits of ancestors surveyed the scene, their visages thick with history and looming regret. "Where might Mr. Grant have wandered?" he murmured. More to himself than to the others around him, his intuition strong as ever. The manor itself had been a hidden labyrinth, filled with cellars, attics, and forgotten rooms. Upon reaching the library, Poirot hesitated, compelled by a sudden weight in the air. He grabbed the doorknob, noting its chill against his palm, as if it were warning him of impending reality. The door creaked open. The scent of old leather and dust, tinged with neglect, swallowing him whole. "Sir, is that you?" A voice trembled from the depths of the room. It was a soft, fearful tone that he recognized instantly. His instincts sharpened as he called back, "Mr. Grant, where are you?" "There is an issue." Charles's voice reverberated from the shadows, laden with urgency, yet laced with something darker. "You must hurry." Poirot stepped forward, anxiety twisting within him. As he turned a corner, he stumbled upon a dimly lit alcove, catching sight of Charles Grant, crouched awkwardly against one of the towering stacks, face pale and trembling with dread. "What has transpired?" Poirot demanded, panic merging with suspicion in his tone. "Do not approach," Charles warned, glancing furtively beyond to something that remained unseen. Just then, a raucous crash echoed inside the quiet chamber, the sound attracting every watchful gaze. "What has happened?" Poirot reiterated firmly, his keen eyes darting to every conceivable route of escape in the gathered dust motes. "It's Harold," Charles cried, now clutching his head in distress. "I saw him. He's been hiding. He knows everything. The letters, the will. It is he who unleashes this chaos upon us." A piercing realization struck Poirot as he stood poised before what had become a new scene of turmoil. "And so you have chosen to evade rather than confront." His voice bore an edge that cracked through the tumult like lightning itself. "I was going to tell you, I swear. He appeared in the hallway. I assure you, it was real." Charles's desperation twisted a knot of suspicion tightly around Poirot's mind. "He held a dagger, something of our father's." "Interesting." Poirot trailed off, deliberating as fragments of the emerging puzzle slipped into place. "And now he has vanished?" Then a steady hand reached forward, initiating a careful exploration of the library's darkened corners, as he whispered, "We will see if your spectre manifests again." Cautiously, Poirot led the charge deeper into the shadows, hearts thundering and breaths held, wrapping the manor in the cloaks of confessions long buried. Outside, the storm reached a furious crescendo as cracked skies unleashed rain that pelted the estate, drenching the scattered pieces of their unraveling reality. Whatever foreboding storm brewed beyond the tempest was, they could sense, about to unleash its true fury. Just then, through the crackling intensity of wind and rain, a low thud resonated from the cellar door, awakening their stunned attention. The moon pierced through a crack in the clouds, revealing something that lay not forgotten, but purposefully concealed. "There," Poirot pointed, eyes alight with clarity, dread coiling in the pit of their collective stomachs. "Our next revelation awaits. The truth may yet tread these shadows." The clang of the cellar door rattled, and he stepped forward. With a fervor akin to spring awakening through a long winter, Poirot squared his shoulders, now more resolved than ever to unveil the lingering darkness surrounding Windermere Manor. The hunt was afoot, and discovery loomed just beyond sight, twisted truths yet to be embraced by sunlight's clarity. Chapter 7. A Whisper from the Dead. A sudden stillness settled over the library, broken only by the incessant pattering of rain against the window, echoing within the hollow corridors of Windermere Manor. Poirot stood resolutely in the dim light, a vivid force against the suffocating shadows that enveloped the room. He felt the charged air begin to twist around him, marking the precipice of revelation. As Lydia, Lady Eleanor, Charles Grant, and other family members gathered in the doorway, their hurried breaths mingled with the gusts of wind that rattled the panes like ghosts clamoring to be heard. "It is enough of this anxiety," Poirot announced, his voice slicing through the thick silence. "The truth shall surface, like ink upon a page." With deliberate care, he turned towards the wall compartments lining the room, a maze of varnished wood concealing untold stories. The gentleness of his fingers brushed against the gilded edges, feeling for the seams of a hidden truth. His keen eye caught a slight irregularity in one of the panels, a subtle shift that suggested it had been disturbed. "Ah, but what do we have here?" Poirot murmured, his excitement contagious as he manipulated the competing shadows into a softer glow. He pulled on the edge of the false panel, feeling it yield with a soft click, and he cast his gaze back toward the assembled guests. Their faces mirrored varying degrees of anxiety, hope, and perhaps something darker, fear. As the panel swung open, revealing a dusty compartment, Poirot reached inside, heart quickening as he unearthed an old letter secured with a fraying ribbon. He could feel the weight of history within that fragile correspondence. A relic of the past, yes? Handwritten, elegant, there is much to discover. He gestured for the guests to draw closer, each face reflecting a collage of emotions, caught between anticipation and trepidation. "Is that truly necessary, Poirot?" Charles Grant's voice trembled, a note of desperation threading through his otherwise authoritative demeanor. "What if it's nothing but ramblings? Or it may hold the key to the mysteries we unravel," Poirot replied sharply, his patience thinning. "The history of a family can be a tangled web, n'est-ce pas?" The letter's seal broke softly under Poirot's practiced hands, sending a thrill through the air as if the echoes of the past held their breath, waiting. He began to read aloud, his voice steady and clear, letting the words wash over the attentive audience. "To whom it may concern, if my death should come swiftly," each sentence unfurled with growing weight, Chopin's nocturnes echoing through the room, gentle yet fervent, like the storm outside. "Loath am I to address this, in pen, a confession of guilt. I find my life in peril, for I have harbored secrets, deception, betrayal." The atmosphere thickened as each family member leaned in, their expressions morphing with the gravity of the words. Poirot paused, watching their reactions. Closely, the glances exchanged, the flexing of fingers, clenched jaws. "It appears our dear Harold had more to contend with than mere grievances over legacy." From the back, a murmur sprang forth, Lydia's wide eyes betraying her shock. What does it mean? What secret becomes public here? Once more, Poirot resumed his reading, honing in on a paragraph laced with hidden threats. "I cannot account for the intentions of my family. One among us would seek to remove me from power, deceive me. But they must know that the truth lives eternally. Should I vanish, it is vital you search for the hidden." Poirot glanced up at the collective tension straining the room. A taut line stretched as the reality of the words sunk deep. "Hidden where, Monsieur Poirot?" Lady Eleanor's voice cracked, stamped with rising dread. "You cannot simply read and not reveal more." "Ah, but there is more," Poirot nodded, feeling the swell of anticipation as a sharp dagger thrust into the heart of their causation. His eyes focused on Charles, struck by an involuntary tremor. As Chauncey spoke, his words were laced with the intimacy of fears revealed, no? "Charles, the implications of this letter, they may reflect upon you," he added softly, knowing the emotional crux hammered into their carefully constructed familial facade. "What of the claims your brother harbored? I knew nothing of his deceit, Charles said, his voice rising defensively, panic flickering just beneath the surface. We were to control Windermere together. I would never— Would you not? Poirot interjected, his voice unwavering as he carefully scrutinized Charles. Did your brother harbor a secret fear that you might desire to control everything, to seize that which was once his? With each word, the grip of tension tightened. Poirot seized the moment before continuing with a stark revelation from the letter. One left to try, indicative of greed, jealousy. He paused, allowing the storm outside to rage, matching the tempest, swelling within the room. Lydia, pale but resolute, stepped forward, doubt soldering her voice. Harold despised James. If that letter proves to be true, James had reason to fear. Poirot felt the shift in dynamics, every glance now drowned in shadows as the layers of deceit began peeling away. The room reverberated with questions unspoken, investigations lying heavy in the air, forging links among the secrets that entwined the family itself. Poirot, summoning the final depth of preservation, interjected with raw clarity, "But it is not only fear that resides in this chamber of misfortune. Encryptions await beneath this facade." His fingers hesitated over the letter. What if he simply wished to protect only himself? A mere whisper fading among the echoes of the dead, or something more? As he looked around, searching for signs, a jolt struck him when he noticed the way Lydia's eyes flickered towards Charles, her lips trembling, something unacknowledged swirling between them. "Ah, mademoiselle," he whispered, an unwrapping clarity forming in his mind. "Does your heart whisper of betrayals beyond mere kin?" The tension electric, he turned back to the gathered family. "And so now, we must discover exactly how deep this association runs before darkness claims its next victim." Outside, the storm reached its zenith, crying for resolution. And as he cast his eyes again to the door, it rattled as if echoing unknown resonances that hung palpable in the air. Then, abruptly, an ominous creak reverberated through the library. Something from behind the false panel shifted, a dark presence seeming to rise from the depths of past transgressions. Poirot, resolute and unyielding, sensed that even greater secrets lay hidden. Their collective breaths hung suspended, as another flicker of lightning illuminated a face lurking in the shadows beyond. A reminder that the dead were not so far removed from the living after all. "Tomorrow," Poirot declared, turning back, intent on the turmoil that could no longer remain silent. "The hunt resumes, and we shall unearth the darkest sins of the past. For now, my dear friends, I bid you to contemplate the whisperings of the dead." Chapter 8. The Key Within the Library. The thunder cracked through the stormy night, shaking the very foundations of Windermere Manor. Poirot remained poised at the edge of the dimly lit library, with the air around him thick with intrigue and apprehension. Just moments before, the letters had begun to reveal their burdens. Now, as he surveyed the anxious faces surrounding him, Lydia, Lady Eleanor, and the distressed Charles, he sensed a quickening heartbeat among them. An unsettling draw in his gut hinted at the deeper secrets yet to be unearthed, the tempest outside barely echoing the storm brewing within. "Mon ami," he began, his voice steady but laced with a quiet intensity. "The darkness of the past envelopes us, but within these walls, light may yet find a way." His discerning gaze settled on the intricate woodwork of the library, a testament to a history woven through the veneer of family love and betrayal. With a sudden inspiration, Poirot gestured toward the far wall, its aesthetics marred by the faintest outline of a hidden panel. Here lies more than mere wood and varnish. I believe we have yet to discover a sanctum of their private confessions. The room fell still, breaths caught like leaves fluttering mid-fall. What do you mean? Lady Eleanor's voice trembled, a flicker of hope and despair battling within the confines of her stiff posture. With each revelation that arises, Poirot continued, his hands deftly probing the ornate carvings, we walk further into the labyrinth of motives, shadows, and above all, deception. Secrets lie in wait, and it is within this very library that they reveal their deepest truths. Don't be daft, Charles interjected, defensive, each word dripping with sarcasm. What secrets can possibly be hidden in a dusty compartment? His bravado veiled a deep-seated anxiety, and Poirot noted how the young man shifted his weight from foot to foot, glancing at Lydia, who remained quietly observant, her expression a mix of disbelief and dread. Poirot did not rise to the bait, but focused instead on his task. With a renewed determination, he pressed against the facade of the panel, feeling for the mechanism that would grant him access to the safeguarded heart of the manor. The faintest click sounded as he engaged with what he sensed beyond the threshold, nerves tingling with the thrill of the unknown. The panel pushed aside, revealing an unseen alcove draped in cobwebs and darkness, betraying the passage of time. "Voila," he whispered with an air of triumph, illuminating the nook with the flicker of a lantern. Within lay a chest, exquisitely crafted but subdued, as though its secrets weighed so heavily upon it that it dulled any shine it might have had. A rarity unearthed, a key not only to accounts, but perhaps to hidden ambitions of your family. As he knelt before the chest, the air thickened with anticipation, the sharp scent of damp wood lingering in the space. Poirot lifted the lid with delicate care, revealing a collection of items gathered within, an old diary, several trinkets, and resting atop it all, a small silver key. The faint glow of the lantern caught the surface, casting fleeting reflections of halcyon days now long since faded. This, Poirot lifted the key expertly between his fingers, may well unlock a relationship between your family that transcends mere rivalry. Allow me to illustrate. His eyes flitted from one family member to the next, each face a canvas painted with a spectrum of emotions, fear, curiosity, and hope. Memories in this chest speak of hidden allegiances, of what is loved and what is despised. Charles stepped forward, the fear pooling beneath his bravado, unraveling like threads at the seams. That there means nothing. Old memories and relics, it's all just vestiges of a past long gone. A past, yes, but intertwined with the present, Charles, Poirot countered sharply, locking eyes with him. You seek to dismiss it, but the past is far from innocent, is it not? It is our nature to wish clean slates, but mine is a mind not skewed by the fever of nostalgia. Are you saying, Lydia ventured tentatively, her voice barely a whisper, that these belongings offer insight into the deceptions, lies? The flickering candor in her concern revealed a tremor of fear twisting around her heart. Indeed, mademoiselle, he said, his voice growing softer, but deception holds a mirror to truth. What we conceal informs what we fear. As he placed the key back onto the lacquered chest, he lifted the leather-bound diary, its edges frayed and bearing the elegance of a poetic hand. Ah, see here, he breathed, carefully leafing through its pages before settling on a particular entry. Written by a hand steeped in anxiety, an account dated mere days before the untimely death of your brother. Poirot's brow knit together as he recalled the tremors in Charles's demeanor when they had touched upon Harold's name earlier. He read aloud, "I can no longer bear the weight of my brother's ambition. James cannot be trusted. If this continues, I fear what may become of me. Tonight, my decision shall be made." A low murmur ricocheted through the assembly, sparks of fervor igniting behind Lydia's questioning gaze. "Who is this James you speak of?" she pressed, urgency filling her tone. "Ah, dear lady of the manor, you must know," Poirot replied, feeling the sway of emotional gravity draw tighter in the room, "that these entries suggest more than mere familial disputes. They are entangled with disturbances that reached far beyond petty jealousy and moral frailty. Perhaps it was not simply Harold's grievances against James, but something much darker." The air hummed with unasked questions, but before Poirot could reveal further deductions, an unholy series of knocks echoed from the cellar door below. The sound reverberated through the library, shifting the atmosphere with its cold, ominous threat. Faces turned instinctively toward the entrance, a chorus of apprehension rising anew. Poirot's instincts fired at the sound. Here was the pulse of the manor, the heartbeat of mysteries, yet unhappy to lie dormant. "Ah, my friends, the storm is not merely outside, but interwoven throughout Windermere. I dare say it seems we have an unexpected visitor." Before anyone could interject, Poirot raised a finger, a signal of silence. The silence held, each anxious breath now aligned with another thundering knock from the cellar door, deeper and darker. "Maybe it is only the wind," Charles protested weakly, but the tremble in his voice broke the facade of bravado. "No, no," Poirot countered. "The winds cannot knock, mon ami. This is a cry to the living. And if we seek the key within this library, we must open every door, whether it leads to revelation or doom." The eyes of the family flickered back to the chest, hesitation grappling with military intent. This darkened library held a lifetime of secrets, and it was time to unlock them all. "Ladies and gentlemen," Poirot declared, with a fire igniting within the depths of his being, "let us embrace what emerges from this night. Prepare yourselves for truth, for it is only then that we can stifle the howling darkness outside." With that, Poirot turned toward the cellar door. It trembled anew, as if beckoned by a force unseen, and within the walls of Windermere, the urgency of unearthing the lurking shadows began to unravel at last. In that charged moment, the most harrowing revelations awaited just beneath the veneer of the mundane, and Poirot was ever intent on unveiling what lay in waiting. Chapter 9. The Final Trap. The air in Windermere Manor buzzed thick with tension, the storm outside matching the discord within. Rain lashed against the large windows, the rhythmic patter almost drowning out the clink of silverware and the murmur of hushed voices at the dining table. Hercule Poirot settled into his seat with meticulous grace, his penetrating eyes scanning each face around him. Lady Eleanor, her brow creased with worry. Charles, a facade of bravado, barely masking his unease. And Lydia, glances darting between her relatives with a mix of dread and anticipation. The dining room, opulent yet shadowy, felt like a stage set for reckoning. "Mon cher, what a storm this is," Poirot remarked, gesturing to the tempest outside, his voice smooth yet underlined with a careful intensity. "It seems even the heavens urge the truth from their sinful domain. Is that not so?" Silence enveloped the room, as if Poirot's words hung like the last note of a somber symphony, demanding attention. Not far from the dining room, the hidden alcove lay shrouded in secrecy, a mere echo of the revelations granted to Poirot. The contents of the chest now weighed heavily on his mind, particularly the cryptic diary entry signed with the name James, a name that was not lost on him, nor on those gathered beneath this roof of grudges and secrets, veiled behind the polite smiles of the family. Tonight, Poirot continued, we feast not for merriment, but for revelation. I trust you all received the letters I prepared for each of you. The mention of the letters stirred a ripple of discomfort, eyes averting. He had insisted they write down their thoughts, the weight of the recent events compelling them to amplify their grievances, an act that Poirot directed like a conductor guiding an orchestra, ensuring harmony in a collection of discord. Letters, Charles muttered, perplexed but defensive. We don't need those to unveil the fears and insecurities your incessant questions have stirred. Ah, my dear Charles, Poirot responded lightly. Nonsense. You see but a surface. Your discomfort dances with the deeper truth lurking within your heart. Only in words, penned with intention, can we grasp the contours of our thoughts. The lights flickered momentarily, casting eerie shadows through the opulent dining room as thunder rumbled overhead. A hint of uncertainty was palpable, a brief tremor that rippled through the assembled family. Your insights are all very interesting, Lydia interjected, her clear voice rising above the din. But Poirot, isn't this dinner merely a distraction from what matters? We are all on edge. Precisely my point, mademoiselle, he chided gently, a frown creasing his brow. Dinner serves as a perfect scene to resolve the play of suspicion, does it not? Think of it as a necessary interlude before the final act. His eyes landed on Lady Eleanor, an unusual glisten of overwhelmed emotion perched on the edge of her eyes. My lady, I sense a burdened heart within our gathering. Speak of what truly weighs upon you and your family. A long silence fell. Then she finally interjected, We have endured enough, Poirot. Secrets, and the shame that accompanies them, hide worse than the truth. Then let us brave the storm, he encouraged with a softened voice, for I sense that perhaps, just perhaps, one among us wishes to unburden themselves of a dreadful truth. Lady Eleanor's desperate state drew the attention of others, shifting glances between Lydia and Charles, who each bore the marks of their anxieties. It was the storm of emotions brought on by shadows of the past, a tragedy woven intricately within their lives, and Poirot couldn't shake the urgency radiating like the very lightning arching outside. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and the butler entered silently, bearing a silver tray topped with envelopes. Each letter bore a single name neatly written within, and Poirot gestured for the butler to proceed, to each one, distributing them carefully. As the family took their sealed secrets, curiosity mingled with trepidation. I wonder what they hold, Poirot mused aloud, his finger gently tapping a folded letter addressed to Charles. The young man fidgeted, all bravado evaporating, as he questioned Poirot with his incredulity. Letters sealed by our past, perhaps concealments born of pain, Poirot replied, his fingers grazing the edge of his own untouched envelope. Mademoiselle Lydia, do you not wish to discover what lies within? This dinner will become a moment of inquisition, and the truth shall emerge, won't it? With a quizzical yet hesitant gaze, Lydia opened her letter, a quiver in her hands, surfacing like an unturned stone. As she read, the silence deepened across the dining room. Eyes turned to her in anticipation. She paled, her face shifting from curiosity to something much deeper, fear. Her gaze shot to Charles, where attention ignited like fresh kindling to a flame. "Why, meeting James was a mistake, and I knew it," she read distressedly, "for in him lies the ambition to destroy all that you love." Charles dropped his letter with a thud, his face contorting in disbelief. "How could you? Who even is James? Why didn't you confide in me?" His accusations pierced through the room, scattering nerves like leaves in the wind. Poirot observed with sharp acuity, "And therein lies your own misdeed, Charles. Fear of impending loss, the very emotion that embraces shadows, has led you both to this brink." Lydia stepped closer, her resolve wavering. "James meant to frame me. He meant to trap me, and I thought I could shake him. But if he learns what I've done—" "Now we tread too close to folly," Poirot interjected sharply, his finger raised imperiously. "Unraveling the truth is vital so that we might understand James's intent. Let us sympathize with the frailty of human ambition and deceit alike." Before they could retort, the unmistakable sound of distant banging echoed, faintly from below, a rhythmic pounding, footfalls scrambling through the cellar. Poirot's demeanor shifted instantaneously, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of revelation built upon dread. "Perhaps," he declared, "the final act is presenting itself. The storm shall yield not only to rain, but to answers." The family's anxiety intensified, uncertainty seeping deeper. Poirot stood poised, prepared to confront the chilling presence of their uninvited guest. Each heart drummed in anxious anticipation. As Poirot approached the door leading to the cellar, his thoughts raced. A gambit had been laid, and the trap was woven tightly around the truth, until now obscured. "Prepare yourselves, mes amis," Poirot breathed, the shadow of a smile crossing his lips. "For the storm shall have no dominion over the revelations to follow. Secrets do not hold your quarry, but rather it is your own betrayals that will ensnare you." In that moment, the manor creaked ominously, and deep down, Poirot knew the darkness was quaking awake, making way for a confrontation that would upend everything. What lurked behind the cellar door echoed not only the truth of a past long harbored, but a destiny yet to unfold, a culmination twisting tightly, and now the time had come to unveil its final trap. Chapter 10. The Lies We Tell. The knocking at the cellar door erupted once more, an urgent cadence that echoed like a heartbeat in the silence that had descended upon Windermere Manor. The storm outside had reached a fever pitch, lightning streaking across the sky, illuminating the anxious faces gathered in the dining room. Poirot stood, his back straight and his features composed, though the keen edge of curiosity played across his features. The tension curled around the members of the household, like the heavy fog that wrapped around the dim corners of the manor. Each lingering secret clung to the walls as if trying to escape the storm. "Enough of this tempest, my friends. It is time we learned what lurks within the shadows," Poirot asserted, striding towards the cellar door. With a nod, he motioned to Charles, who had been fumbling with his letter, the color drained from his cheeks, mingling fear and disbelief. "You perceive the danger, but you do not grasp its essence yet. Shall we uncloak this mischief together?" The others merely watched, their faces fluttering between dread and morbid curiosity, as Poirot positioned himself before the door. With a firm hand, he grasped the handle, ready for whatever lay beyond. The ominous rhythm of knocks ceased as Poirot swung open the door, revealing a staircase spiraling down into darkness. The musty scent of dampness, mingled with the unmistakable tang of regret, wafted upwards. "Do you fear what waits in the gloom?" he asked, glancing back at the gathering of fearful faces. Lydia trembled, her eyes wide with uncertainty. What if it's him? Then we shall confront him. Or perhaps we shall find him to be a mere shadow of our fears. Poirot replied, the unwavering confidence in his tone igniting a spark of courage among them. As he began the descent, the others hesitated before a collective exhale urged them into motion, forming a hesitant conga line behind Poirot as he plunged into the dark. The stillness of the cellar enveloped them, the sound of the storm now a muffled undercurrent. Thin rays of light peeked from cracks in the wooden beams, illuminating dusty remnants of old crates, a broken rocking chair, and an antique trunk wedged against the far wall. Poirot held up a hand, signaling the group to stifle their breaths. "Listen," he whispered. The others strained their ears, and soon they could hear it. The faint sound of muffled sobs mingled with the gurgling echoing of water from unknown sources. With cautious steps, they moved further in, aligning themselves near a dim window by the stairs, the rain tracing rivulets down the glass. Then a shadow shifted at the end of the cellar. A figure crouched low. It became increasingly clear as they approached, its form wrapped in the paler hues of distress. "It is only the two of us against the world now, James." A low voice resonated out of the gloom. Poirot squinted his eyes, pushing ahead, heart racing. "Who is there?" Poirot called into the quiet, the authority in his voice demanding the truth as much as it sought to unveil fear. The figure shuddered, turning towards the light, revealing the pallid face of a woman. Her mascara streaked like rivulets of tar down her cheeks. She was the last person Poirot expected to see here. "Genevieve," he breathed softly, collecting images of her from past encounters. The room had been weighted with toxic secrets when her name flickered like a candle, struggling to stay lit. "Genevieve, what madness brings you here?" Poirot inquired, the fabric of his meticulous demeanor fraying with concern. I didn't want it to come to this," she stammered, stepping forward, recognition sparking in her clouded eyes as they flitted to Lydia. I thought he had changed after all those years." "Who, James?" Lydia interjected, both fear and fury repainting her features. "What are you talking about?" Genevieve hesitated, a flash of anguish shattering the composure she'd clung to. "He was my closest confidant. I wished to protect him, but he betrayed me. And you, Lydia. He had secrets of his own. That's why he came back." Charles's face twisted with confusion. "But why, Genevieve? Why now, in the dead of night?" "Because," Genevieve began, her voice wavering as strength ebbed. "Because he's dead. He knew too much, and I was meant to keep him safe. Do you understand? He was tormented, and now even in death, I fear his spirit is still seeking retribution for something I did so long ago." Room fell into a sinister quiet, punctuated only by the rhythmic drumming of rain against the cellar and the distant rumble of thunder as the sky wept above them. Poirot, digesting the implications more swiftly than they could grasp, pressed forward. What was he seeking? What shadow did you allow to creep into this very room? "I bear the secret, Poirot. I was the one who convinced him to keep everything hidden, to distort the truth, and force others to love him blindly," she released, anguishy, turning to a fervent plea. "When James turned against the people he cared about, it was my influence that had turned his heart to darkness." Charles stepped back, brow knitting together messily. "You mean to tell me that James was manipulating us against each other?" With a furtive glance, Poirot caught Lydia's eye. Confusion mingled with rage. "Aye, but you must comprehend, my dear friends," he urged. "To reveal James as the puppet master is only to scratch the surface of this web. He had enemies, secrets that could shatter lives." "There is more," Genevieve continued, desperation trailing her voice. "Before he vanished, we were linked by blood. You see, James is my brother." The revelation tore through them, an icy touch piercing the warm air of the cellar. Charles gasped, while Lydia merely blinked, disbelief stitching confusion across her features. "Your brother?" Poirot was quick to piece the puzzle and the relationship that had remained shadowed for so long. Then, everything, the insidious letters, your fears, the identity crisis, fate entwined our lives. Perhaps a remedy lies at the heart of this storm. But before they could unfurl the implications twisting within the air, a louder sound broke the murmur. The cellar door creaked open, and the light bathed a figure in shadow, silhouetting them against the tempest. "Zut alors!" Poirot exclaimed, glancing back at the apparition of a familiar face, splattered with raindrops and wielding dread less portenteur than before. The embodying figure transformed into a living echo of everything that had concealed the truth thus far. It was James, or a spectre, dressed as such. "Now, dear friends," he called out, a wicked smile spreading across his lips, "are you ready to hear the lies we tell?" As the storm raged louder than ever, Poirot's mind whirled. Chaos was near, and secrets craved discovery in a world spiraling out of control. With each moment, the stage was set for a revelation that would change everything, and something hidden within the darkness began to awaken at long last. Chapter 11. The Truth Buried in the Garden. The storm had passed, leaving in its wake a sullen quiet that clung to Windermere Manor like damp laundry. The wind whispered through the eaves, the raindrops still clinging to the window panes like memories refusing to depart. And within, the atmosphere hummed with an electric uncertainty. Poirot left the cellar behind, his heart racing with the weight of Genevieve's revelations. Her confession had shed a thin, flickering light upon the labyrinthine shadows of deceit enclosing them. The flickering bulb of hope, however, twisted into despair as questions darkened the air. "Genevieve," Poirot said, his voice firm, yet laced with sympathy, "what have you hidden too long? We must proceed. Understanding lies in the daylight." The others followed, their faces masks of shock and tension. Charles's hands trembled as he wrung his letter, and Lydia's gaze darted between them, confusion etching lines into her brow. They retreated to the drawing-room, where the hearth's warmth contrasted sharply with the chill of their whispered conspiracies. "What do we do now?" Lydia finally asked, her voice carrying a note of desperation. Poirot regarded her with a measured consideration. "We learn what vengeance lies at the heart of sorrow. We must examine the evidence beyond this room. The garden. Have you all considered the significance of that overgrown sanctuary?" A curious frown knit itself upon Lydia's features. "The garden. But what relation does that hold?" "Ah, my dear," he replied, his brow knitting into an expression of intense concentration. "Sometimes the most profound truths are buried amidst thorns, where no eye dares to cast a glance. They grow wild, as do our memories and regrets." Charles, still visibly pale, hesitated before responding. But what could possibly be in that tangled mess? The last remnants of James's secrets may very well lie amongst the petals. Poirot moved with a sudden firmness, the glint of determination sparking in his eyes. "We shall venture to the garden. Gather your courage, mes amis. Where lies despair, there too must we find some hope. As they stepped outside, the air felt heavy, with the scent of wet earth and new beginnings. The garden stood before them, a wild melange of untamed flora, weeds chocking the once carefully curated beds. Shadows loomed as twilight descended, the wind stirring the leaves into a gentle rustle that sounded like the faint sighing of spirits long past. Poirot crouched near an area where the blossoms had crumbled under the weight of neglect. Engaging each of his senses, he reached beneath piles of clover and ferns, and his fingers grazed against something solid. He pulled back the verdant strands, uncovering a small but unmistakable object, a tarnished locket. "Ah," he breathed, holding it up to the dimming light. "A clue, mon ami." Moving closer to the garden, he called the others to witness his finding. "Look, do you see the engraving?" He displayed the locket with a flourish, revealing the scratched initials J.S. Lydia gasped, her hand clasping her mouth in shock. That must be James," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "Indeed," Poirot replied, already piecing together the implications. "It has been cast aside, forgotten, but it remains a treasure of a life tangled with betrayal." He cracked it open to reveal a pair of tiny portraits, one of a young man whose brooding eyes seemed eerily familiar, and another of a woman whose delicate features and tousled hair sparked recognition in Lydia's expression. "Is that—" Charles hesitated. "Your mother, Lydia? I cannot believe it." "Her face. How did this come to be here?" Lydia's eyes widened in horror as the power of the connection hit her. A silence flickered like a candle under a strong breath, the implications unsettling everyone present. "She was in love with James," Poirot stated, his gaze sharp. "This locket symbolizes a story of passion and loss hidden within the roots of this very garden. But there is something more." He flipped the locket over, revealing scratches, letters barely legible. "These engravings, they speak of promises broken and of love turned into torment." "Promises," Lydia whispered, confusion mingled with a depth of despair overwhelming her. "Indeed, the twists of fate may reveal that James was more than what he appeared." Poirot paused, his demeanor sharpening as though piercing through veils of ambiguity. "Have you any recollection of confrontations between James and your mother? Surely he would have come to Windermere often, as well as away, carrying unspoken sentiments." Lydia's brow creased, eyes clouded with nostalgia and heartbreak. "They did have a connection long before we lost her. But what does that mean?" Poirot straightened, an expression of resolve settling on his features. "Perhaps James sought a way to wrap you both in his web of deception, manipulating emotions deeper than mere manipulation. The garden, representing life's cycles of beauty and death, can forge betrayals far stronger than mere hostility." As if summoned by the tension coiling among them, the howl of the wind whipped through the garden, rattling the branches above. But Poirot stared into the tangled hedge, deep in contemplation. Across this ground, untold secrets await, and yet— His voice trailed off, his keen mind grappling with an unsettling instinct that he could not yet define. Charles shifted restlessly at Poirot's side. "What more do you sense, Poirot?" But Poirot was already tuning in to the dwindling light, his eyes narrowing at the encroaching shadows. "Legends may linger beyond foliage. We must keep digging, my friends." Suddenly, a sudden motion caught his eye. It was an almost imperceptible twitch along the far edge of the garden. "Something stirs," he exclaimed with urgency, striding towards the movement. The others followed closely behind, their hearts pounding in symphony with the evening air. As they approached, whispers of unease rustled between breaths. There, nearly half hidden beneath a tangled mass of roots, lay a small, rusted key. Mon Dieu, Poirot knelt, his heart unveiling its rhythmic desires as he dug it out, lifting it high as a spoils of war. "What is it, Poirot?" Genevieve asked, stepping forward, eyeing the relic with a blend of dread and curiosity. "This key, my friends, this may unlock more than just doors." He turned it over in his palm, his imagination igniting like a wildfire. Perhaps it leads to a locked box, a cellar, or even a safer harbor of secrets longing to be told. As the clouds overhead thickened, the first hints of rain began to drizzle again, a heavy reminder that storms hold not just destruction, but also the promise of truth. The evening settled around them, like an unsettling spell, and Poirot gazed back at the garden, untamed, unfurling tales waiting to be told. But even with this new revelation, a shadow loomed. What did it truly represent? The question lingered just beyond the trellised gates of understanding, setting the stage for calamity. "Prepare yourselves, mes amis," Poirot uttered, the weight of his deductions igniting an unshakable resolve. For within the folds of the garden, the truth was waiting to rise, tangled but bound for discovery. A truth that would alter their lives irreparably, and it would come with a price most profound. Chapter 12. The Confession. No one heard. The air was thick with tension, the moon shrouded behind stormy clouds, casting a pall over Windermere Manor. Outside, a rhythmic patter of rain began to fall again, drenching the earth, while inside, the dimly lit drawing room crackled with anxiety. Poirot stood at the center, every eye trained on him, a sanctuary of poise amidst the brewing chaos. "My friends," he began, his voice slicing through the silence like thunder, "we have gathered the pieces of this grotesque puzzle, but one piece still eludes us, a motive colossal enough to drive a lover to murder." Lydia's hands trembled, holding onto the locket as though it were her lifeline, a fragile remembrance entangled in secrets. "What are you suggesting, Poirot? That someone among us—" Her voice faltered, the implications hanging heavily in the air. "Indeed," Poirot replied, his glossy eyes glinting with sharpness. "To uncover the truth, lurking in shadows, one must often confront the darkness within." Genevieve stood beside Lydia, a tempest of conflicting emotions marked in her features. But who among us could harbor such malice? James's death. It's a tragedy, not a deliberate act. Her voice wavered, desperate for reason amid the storm of accusations. Poirot's gaze swept across their faces. Charles's anguish, Lydia's vulnerability, Genevieve's fervor, and then settled on a figure who had remained on the fringes of their conversation. "Mon cher Charles," he prompted, directing the unease toward him. "You were closely associated with James. Did you not resent him in some way? Is it not true that he dismissed your attempts at reconciliation?" Charles went pale at the suggestion. "I would never wish harm upon him. He was my friend, albeit a misguided one. I never imagined he would resort to such tactics, let alone turn his back on our friendship," he stammered defensively, his eyes darting nervously to the window where the rain danced furiously. Poirot raised an eyebrow, keenly aware of the tremor in Charles's voice. "Yet you were deeply troubled by his actions, the letters, the whispers, your friendships twisted into animosity. Perhaps there lies a more primal fear than friendship betrayed." "Enough, Poirot," Lydia interjected, desperation etching deeper lines on her brow. Do not pin this on Charles. He is innocent. Quite so, Poirot replied rapidly before turning to Genevieve. And what of you, mademoiselle? You hold the deepest connection, do you not? Was there something unspoken between you and your dear brother before his disappearance? A striving to save or condemn? Genevieve faltered as her emotions swelled. James was... She hesitated, a fleeting expression of confusion, mingled with something darker, shadowing her features. He was caught in something I cannot even begin to fathom. I only wished to protect him. Protect him? Poirot called, leaning closer, his intensity unyielding. Or perhaps to conceal the darkness that consumed him. If you were to bear witness to the downfall of your own blood, what lengths might you go to preserve the facade of a perfect family? There was a brief silence, before the tension snapped like a taut thread. Letty, who had remained in the background, gathered the courage to speak up, her eyes alight with urgency. We need to consider the letters, what they revealed. They hold the key, don't they, Poirot? The secrets that bind us all, and the one who might have felt most cornered. Oh, the letters, Charles muttered, clenching his fists. They hinted at more than betrayal. They threatened exposure. James wasn't just manipulating us. He was controlling our fates like pawns in his game. Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from the garden, startling them all. What was that? Lydia gasped, gripping the edge of the mantel. Poirot, however, remained unfazed, his mind spinning with the mounting clues. "Shall we investigate the noise?" he said, moving with purpose toward the door, leading the group into the darkness of the night. Outside, the rain fell mercilessly, cacophonous against the cobbled path. The garden loomed before them, a sinister expanse shrouded in deep darkness. The earthly scent of moss mingled ominously with the sweet decay of dampened flowers, a vivid reminder of time's relentless march. "Over there," Charles pointed into the brush, and the flickering light of their lantern illuminated a small glimmer on the ground, striking against the muddy soil. A tarnished silver ring glittered faintly. Poirot knelt to examine it, turning it over in his palm. A ring indeed, but not just any ring. The initials engraved. He squinted, barely able to make them out in the flickering torchlight. J.S. What could this signify? "She said he belonged to me." Genevieve's voice broke, her eyes wide, with a realization stretching across her features. "James, he lent it to me once, claiming it belonged to a woman he loved. Perhaps it was her promise, a holdover from the past? Were any vows surrounding this accursed object?" Poirot inquired, his eyes narrowing. Whispers of entangled hearts often conceal bitterness, and jealousy can turn into fire. With a shudder, Genevieve stepped backward. "It was a fever dream that night, when secrets swirled like ghosts. I just wished to know him, and in trying to save him, I may have doomed us all." "Could it be?" Poirot turned to face her directly. "You sought his trust? Or even more sinister, to protect him, it would have meant keeping him on a path of destruction by becoming an accomplice." Before Genevieve could respond, Lydia drew closer, voice trembling yet firm. "Stop. We have lost enough. Accusing each other will not bring James back. We need to find the truth behind his death." "The key, indeed the key," Poirot erupted, his eyes alight with intense fervor. "We have all forgotten its potential. Perhaps it does not just unlock doors, but exposes the raw truths concealed within the floodwaters of our past." Vincent instinctively touched the locket hanging from her neck. What if the letter he was trying to hide had a connection to this, a final note filled with desperate confession, redolent of love and blame? Poirot nodded, a resolute serenity sweeping across his features. Let us retrieve it. Desperation can drive the spirit into madness. If Genevieve sought to distance herself from James, perhaps the truth lies buried not just within the garden, but reflected in her heart. As they gathered back to the manor, the storm intensified, echoing the storm brewing within. The flicker of lantern light illuminated the anxious faces, guided by fate's relentless hand toward inevitable confrontation. A confrontation too raw, too desperate, reeking of deeply rooted motives that would see shadows revealed. Yet, there it loomed, a darkness suffused with both dread and sorrow. Who truly bore the weight of a monstrous act, and what confessions would echo long after the winds of revenge had settled? They felt the dawning truth, and in the recess of their minds, an unfathomable shift coiled, ready to unleash revelation with an irrevocable chill. "Prepare yourselves for the confession no one heard," Poirot murmured, striding through the rain-soaked path. "For justice, my dear friends, does not come easily, yet it awaits as surely as the next storm."